How long was your surgery?
9 hours.
How long are they normally?
2 or 3. I didn't really feel like I was being heard. I was being dismissed. My pain was being minimized. Pain was 10 out of 10. It was me leveled on the bathroom floor, holding the toilet for not just hours, days.
So you were walking around with a burst appendix for 2 months.
Welcome to the Rock Bottom Podcast, presented by Jigsaw Health, where we share health horror stories that inspire. Today's guest is Ashley Banek. After stopping birth control in her early 30s, Ashley began experiencing debilitating symptoms and struggled for answers while medical professionals dismissed her pain. A severe endometriosis diagnosis and a 9-hour surgery changed everything and ultimately inspired her to found Samara Health, a company dedicated to helping other women with complex issues navigate the medical system.
Before we dive in, just a quick note. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. So please always consult with a healthcare practitioner before making any changes to your health routine.
This is the Rock Bottom Podcast.
Ashley Banek, welcome to the Rock Bottom Podcast. It's a 3-dog podcast today. Monk, Lola,
Yes.
and Teddy have joined us on the couch.
More puppies, the better.
That's right.
They didn't
bring
want to miss this one.
all the good energy.
I can tell.
Well,
Thank
we are
you.
excited to hear your story. Why don't you start? Why don't you just start? I
All
think
right.
there's a lot to unpack here. So just
There
begin.
is. First things first, thank you for having me and creating space for these types of conversations. I think women's health is a complicated subject, and it's one that's getting more and more attention, which I love seeing in the market and with investors and all of the things. But at the end of the day, the fragmentation that we all experience throughout the healthcare system is still very prevalent, and it's really the foundation of my story. As many women, I was on birth control from late teens into my early 30s. And that really left me with no real symptoms, really regular cycles, regular everything. And never knew there was this underlying, horror that was growing in my body. At the age of 31, I decided to go off birth control. I was like, I'm in my 30s. I can do all the things right.
You can do the tracker system.
I know what I'm doing here,
Yeah.
and I just want to have natural cycles. Like, there's no reason not to at this age, especially 30s, thinking about family planning, all of those things. Took myself off birth control, 2 years. It was a dream, no problems. Bless you. So regular cycles, regular everything, felt good, felt great. Went through a few really, really big life transitions. In that time, I moved out of my hometown for the first time at the age of 31 and went to Washington, D.C. with a couple of girlfriends, started kind of a new life, new chapter, and had exited an 11-year relationship. So lots of stuff going on, which, stress can absolutely affect us as women, our bodies, our cycles, all the things, but mine stayed really normal. All of that was good and fine and dandy until August of 2018. And it was like one cycle to the next for me were completely different. And that is when violent vomiting and nausea started at the onset of my period cycle. And
Wow.
At first I was like, is it stress induced? Like, I was about to actually move and leave DC for a new job on the West Coast in the Bay Area. So there was just a lot of transition and things going on. So I wasn't quite sure. And, we get our cycle about once a month. So it came and it went. And I was like, I guess I just have to wait and see what happens next month. Maybe it was a fluke.
So it was like the first day or two of your cycle, and you were just having severe cramping and nausea.
Yes,
and
pain was 10 out of 10, which was completely abnormal for me. And it was me leveled on the bathroom floor, like holding the toilet for days, not just hours, days. And I was like, this seems really strange. But at that point in time, I didn't have a pattern really to recognize. So I was like, maybe it's a one-off. It was not. It was the beginning of a really big nightmare. And in the midst of that, as I mentioned, I was moving. So I was like, stress has got to be the trigger here. There's a lot going on. Let me get to California. Let me get settled in, get going on my new job. I'll start to, establish my primary care once I get to California. But over the next 2, 3, 4 months, my symptoms were just getting worse at the onset of every cycle. Days 1 through 4 were just a nightmare. So I was going to practitioners in California, the Bay Area, Stanford Medicine, really reputable places. And everybody that I was meeting with, and most of them were actually women doctors, were saying, well, if you felt better on the pill, just get back on the pill. And I didn't reject that. I was like, that's not an option, but don't you think my body is telling us something? I think there's something more going on
Will that
here.
just mask the symptoms?
Exactly. So I was like, this is too violent. This is too disruptive. This can't just be a mute it and move on for me. A little like piece of my backstory. I'm a biomedical sciences degree, finance degree. I've worked in hospitals. I've worked in healthcare. I've worked in a handful of places, wanted to be a doctor when I was growing up. So for me, it didn't align. I was like, there's something not aligning here. I know my body pretty well as you can when you've suppressed your hormones for your entire life.
Right.
But I was like, something doesn't add up for me.
I'm curious, when it happened the second cycle, you were like, wait a second, again?
Yes.
And then the third cycle, you're like, oh,
We got a
crap.
problem.
And then, like, by the time you got to the fourth or the fifth cycle, what was your mindset like knowing that, like, your cycle's about to start? Did that...
fear, complete fear, because it's completely debilitating. So I'd be like scrambling to rearrange my schedule to be like, it's probably going to happen. So I can't go anywhere, do anything for these days. And at that point in time, I had just started a new job. Like, absenteeism is a real problem.
Yeah.
1 in 7 women have endometriosis and 1 in 6 lose their jobs due to absenteeism.
Wow.
So...
1
which
in
is the
7 women.
Yeah,
Well,
which
we're
is
gonna-
the diagnosis I ultimately got to down the road.
We're definitely going to get into endometriosis. I was shocked to hear 1 in 7
1 in
women
7
have it.
is the new statistic.
So this is going to apply to a lot of our audience. So
Yeah.
we're going to dig into that in a little bit. But now, sort of take us back to, you're moving back across the country to the West Coast. You're seeing some female doctors. They're saying,
Yep.
well, why don't you just go back on birth control? Did you choose to do that?
I chose not to because I really wanted to know what was signaling in my body, and I was willing to pay the price of 4 or 5 days of complete misery and horror and not being able to show up for the things that matter, to just continue to see what was happening in my body. The days in between were okay. Definitely over the years, things got much worse. But at that point in time, the in-between when my cycle started in those first 4 or 5 days, I was operable. Like, things were moving. I wasn't in pain all the time. I was in some pain, but it wasn't disrupting everything. So I was able to kind of architect things over that period of time to make sure I was at home or planning to work from home, and told my new employer, like, hey, I'm going to actually work from home this day, because I knew Monday was going to be a nightmare. They didn't love that, but they also, it wasn't like a hardcore, like, be here 5 days in the office type of job, because in the Bay Area, they were really flexible before pandemic times. And then everybody kind of adopted some of that. So I was very lucky in that sense. So fast forward a couple of months, I'm continuing to see practitioners because none of these new doctors were really resonating with me. I didn't really feel like I was being heard. I was being dismissed. My pain was being minimized. And I was like, no, it's horrific. Like, what I'm going through is not right. And they were okay with it not
What
being
kind
right.
of tests or scans or any, if any, were they
None.
offering you?
Nothing was offered. It was just the pill or suffer.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And I was like, that seems like...
And I'm guessing these were not like holistic type doctors. These are
No,
normal,
not at that
just
point. Yeah, they were
MD.
OBGYNs, because I think as women, that's generally the first practitioner we drift to.
Sure.
It's the one we need to see most often. And what I find with the business that I'm building with Samara Health is like that tends to be who we rely on as our anchor physician, although they have a limited scope. But most of our health needs orbit around our hormones, and our hormones are so connected to our reproductive organs, even though they do much more than that, brain health, heart health, all the things. We get put into this box of gyne care. And then for many of us, maybe that's enough. It's not the protocol I would recommend in terms of what I build within Samara Health, but that's generally where we land.
And that certainly wasn't enough for you.
It was not, no. And so I hadn't gone to any holistic providers at that point in time because I knew gaslighting sucked and not being believed is the worst thing you can experience in the medical system, and being like trained to believe that your period pain or the pain is normal. So the first things they usually ask you, well, did your mother have bad periods? And I'm like, well, yeah, she's like mentioned that before. And they're like, oh, well, then it's just in your family history. And you're like, that's not helpful.
No.
And what else? So I got to the point where I was going to go home to Colorado, where I'm from, over the summer of 2018, just for a normal visit. I decided to extend that visit just a bit so I could go see the OBGYN that I had had for like 12 years at home. I'm like, I'm going to my hometown practitioner. He'll believe me. Like, he knows me. Like, he knows I'm not making stuff up, and he's seen my body over a long duration of time. So I call Dr. Preby and I'm like, hey, can I get in with you? There's some stuff going on. And he was the first physician to mention the word endometriosis. And I was like, what is that?
How long had it been? A couple of years?
I was approaching about 1 year.
About 1 year.
Yeah. When the word was mentioned, which is actually
Endometriosis.
very, very fast. My story is both a blessing and not so much on the other side, because I did find out early and I did get a diagnosis early. Most women wait 10 years for that same answer.
Wow.
Because they just are
We get
told that
gaslit.
this is normal.
Period pain is normal.
And what is endometriosis?
Endometriosis is a chronic inflammatory condition where cells that are like your endometrial cells are growing outside of your your uterus. And I really emphasize the word like because it was discovered in about 1940. A physician noticed the similarity of the tissue and the cells that were replicating. But they're not identical, which I think is a really big part of the story that is yet to unfold with why endometriosis, why the prevalence, why is it a hidden, epidemic in some sense, recognizing 190 million women in the world are suffering from it. So it produces adhesions and lesions on your ovaries, in your abdominal cavity. It can go to your diaphragm. We found it on the lung. They found it on the throat. So for whatever reason, it's been kind of cornered into reproductive health or gynecological care. New and emerging, research as it gets more studied is starting to reveal that it's a systemic issue across the body. It's an inflammatory condition, and it's not just reduced to ovaries, fallopian tubes, uterus, etc.
So maybe
That's
it
just
starts
kind of where
there?
it tends to hang out.
Okay, but then it travels.
It travels. So one of the things they believe, or one method, is that you have backflow, retrograde menstrual flow. Every woman has this. It's not uncommon, and some camps believe that is part of how those cells get misplaced or lost. Other camps believe that there's maybe cellular division at like the embryo stage where things are getting misplaced. And that's why those cells are now in your abdomen versus in your uterus where your endometrial lining is. So what happens with your body when your period cycle starts is that because they're very similar cells, when our hormones change and we start to go on our menstrual cycle, it tells those cells to bleed too. Those cells are now bleeding in your abdomen or in these other places, which your body responds to as internal bleeding. And so your T cells, go to fight the good fight and support you and try to repair all of this internal bleeding. And what they do is they build what we call lesions and adhesions. And those patches start to grow all over your organs, in essence. And the lesions are as strong as like a tendon, and they start to tether your organs together.
No wonder it's so painful.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Maybe this is a dumb question.
No dumb questions.
Please ask on behalf of me because
Yes.
I am
And
mind blown
the thing,
right
women, we don't know about this.
What?
Most
No.
women I talk to have never heard this word,
now. No.
even though that's 1 in 7.
So the lesions and adhesions build up over the course of
Time.
26 days. 28 days is the cycle, right?
They
Typical.
stay.
Yeah,
So
they stay.
Yeah.
But why do those start to rupture in the first 4 days of your cycle?
It's like your endometrial lining of your uterus. When a woman goes on her period, you're shedding that lining and you're bleeding. Those cells are trying to do the same thing, but they're not in your uterus. They're just kind of freelance in your abdomen.
And there's like lesions, which probably makes it more painful.
Yes. And so it's so understudied. Like, there's loads of questions that I have that are not answered yet, but they are starting to learn more about the progression of the disease and why, and all of our hormones play a factor in that, estrogen and progesterone. But really, the why we can't detect it sooner, and why period pain, in my opinion, should never be normal. And that's one of the biggest things I advocate on, is that if you have painful periods, it doesn't mean you have a whole huge issue, but it does mean that there's an imbalance going. We should not be disrupted by our cycles.
So most likely some sort of hormonal imbalance.
Yes. Yeah. And you're just prone to inflammatory conditions. It's a whole body systemic condition because of how it does travel, and they're finding it in places that they would have otherwise thought impossible before.
So I definitely want to come back to Samara Health, which is the company that you're building, and the hormone imbalance. But first, take us back to the doctor in Colorado, your gynecologist that first said those words, endometriosis, to you. What was your feeling at the time? What was the follow-up? What did you guys go through after you first heard that?
That was the beginning of probably one of the hardest journeys of my life. So the word endometriosis gave me something to research. And being a biomedical degree and all of the things, I completely nerded out on anything and everything I could devour about what is this and what is happening. So his recommendation was, the only way to diagnose endometriosis is through a laparoscopic procedure or surgery. They have to go in with robotics and see the tissue before they can name it as endometriosis and obviously biopsy it as well, and then actually get it on your medical record. And that's what women wait so long to get, is because it is a surgery to go and just diagnose it, not even excise it or try to treat it. So he was like, he made it seem very easy, quite honestly. He was like, yep, endo, kind of common. What we're going to do, we'll get you into surgery. We're going to do a laparoscopic procedure. I'm going to clean you all up, and you'll be on your way. And I was like, oh, great. And this is when, your trust in the system is, it hasn't faltered you before. So why now? And you don't really think about, like, should I get a second opinion?
Plus you had a trust factor with him as well.
Exactly. So I was like, this sounds like the plan. So let's do the plan. So he scheduled me for surgery the following October, like in the midst of, more life changes. And I was actually changing employers yet again. And I was actually starting with a human performance company called Exos. And just as I was booking for surgery, I got offered the job. The job was a Bay Area based job as well. But I was like, I can't start for a month because I've got to have a surgery. And my boss, who is still my main employer today with Exos, which is also here in Phoenix, he's incredible and was like, you're the person for us. We will wait for you as long as it takes. But it was one of those really fragile moments for us as women when we're trying to prioritize our health. We're trying to get ourselves moving in our careers. I was 34 at the time, trying to climb the ladder, right, and continue to build a life while trying to understand this condition and try to move through it and get past it and not end up on that wrong end of the spectrum of no job, no income, and debilitated by this condition. So that was huge. And I named that because this is where we as women in the workforce really have a hard time being honest about what's happening in our bodies, because sometimes it does require time away, or it requires us to work in different ways because we have real things working for us and against us at times. So we went into surgery, and I was out like in a blink. 30 minutes is all I was under anesthesia for. And when I woke up from anesthesia, my doctor was sitting about right where you are with his his head in his hands. And as I woke up, he was just beside himself. And he was like, I'm so sorry. I have the worst news to give you. And I was like, oh.
No.
I'm like, so we're done? And he was like, I couldn't do anything. he was like, your case is so severe. I can't see any of your organs. You have so many adhesions and lesions. Everything is tethered together. I cannot see your uterus. I cannot see your ovaries. I have no clear view. I didn't bowel prep you because I didn't think it was going to be severe. So there was nothing I could do for you without putting you in an extreme danger and extreme risk of going septic.
Oh my gosh.
So he was like, but what I did do, I took a bunch of photos. A lot. He's like, you're gonna need these because you gotta find somebody who can help you. And I don't know where you're gonna find them.
What was your thought at that moment? What were you feeling?
I was devastated. I mean, you're thinking
that's
about
the last thing you wanted or you imagined to hear.
I thought he said we were going to get cleaned up and I'd be tip-top shape. I'd be on my way, like to go start my new job, my new life, everything I've been working for. Like, no, we're not supposed to, it's not supposed to continue. This is supposed to be where this ends. I don't want to suffer anymore.
I have a new job to start.
Yeah, I'm busy. I'm booked and busy. Come on. So it was devastating and devastating from a multitude of factors. Not only the information, of he wasn't able to help me. I was disappointed at that point in time. It was the biggest gift he could have given me though, because he didn't operate outside of his scope or outside of his talent. And not every doctor does that. They want to try, they want to help. Sometimes maybe they have outsized their skill. He knew he was completely out of his territory and chose to do nothing. And that was the most responsible and ethical decision he could have made for me. Instead of trying to be a savior.
Yeah.
He couldn't save me. He knew it. But he knew pictures was going to be currency for me for whatever physician and surgeon I end up with next so they could understand the severity of my case. And so the next thing he said is, you're 35. About to be 35. You need to go freeze your eggs right now. If you plan to have a baby or have a family at any point in time, you better go freeze your eggs. Because I'm telling you right now, you're not going to be able to keep all your organs. Like, I don't know if a surgeon that can handle this that isn't going to take your organs out. So you may not have ovaries after all of this. So go freeze your eggs, which meant suffering deeply every month until I could get that accomplished. And then the other side of that coin is I've just flushed like $7,000 down the toilet because of out-of-pockets and deductibles for a surgery that yielded me pictures. Huge gift, very expensive pictures, by the way.
Yes.
But like that is what set me up for success down the road. So this was 2019 at this point. And so I got out of that. I told my boss I was coming back to California after, my little Colorado stint to do all of this, and started working. I just tried to get back into the groove of normal life and try to continue to build what I've been working so hard to build, my life, my career, all of the things. Suffering continued. It was only getting worse. And so I searched and I looked for the reproductive endocrinologist now so that I could do IVF and get my egg freezing part of that started. Had a great referral from somebody in Colorado. And we all know what happened in March of 2020.
Yes.
And the world shut down, and so did all elective procedures. And for a stage 4 endometriosis patient who is doing egg freezing, which is an elective procedure, I couldn't get anything done. So I was put on pause. And that pause lasted until July of 2020. So not a ton of time, but the suffering,
I'm sure it was stressful every day, though.
Every day, I'm only suffering worse month over month. It's only getting worse. So July comes around. I go back to Colorado to do this egg freezing cycle. And it didn't work out. I was on way too high of doses of drugs. My body wasn't responding. I had only 4 follicles grow, which is like really, really low. The eggs that they retrieved, none of them were mature or viable. So I just flushed another $15,000 down the toilet.
What drugs were you on at the time?
I'd have to look back on what they were stimulating me with. I don't recall off the top of my head, but I didn't know they were high doses. I didn't know. I figured they're doctors. They're putting me on the most appropriate plan. And in their mind, maybe they were. But it definitely wasn't curated for endometriosis. And so another just completely devastating blow in July of 2020. I honestly didn't know how to like bounce back from that one. I was in pieces. Not only was just like doing injections alone hard, trying to follow the regimen, 8 p.m. in the bathroom and one of your vials, your pellets doesn't look right. And I'm panicking and calling the CVS pharmacist to be like, is this normal? Should I inject this? Like just navigating everything alone. Everything was alone. And I have lovely family and friends, like the most amazing support structure. But in these moments, you are still alone and you are still navigating and you're still trying to sort out your own answers. There was no ChatGPT at that point in time. So it was good old Google search. And that takes a while to find the things you need.
Yes.
So that was a huge setback. And then coming off of that cycle and all of those drugs, I went into a low of like a depression that I'd never felt in my life before. I was like, I know I'm sad. And it's okay to be sad. This is sad. This is frustrating.
Yeah.
This is all the things. I don't think I'm this sad. And I was like, these drugs are crazy. My hair falling out like left and right.
And
like,
these are basically the drugs for
stimulating your ovaries to produce follicles so that
yes.
they can retrieve multiple eggs at a time.
So that was all for the IVF.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, these were IVF drugs.
Yes.
Yes. So once you realized, okay, that I guess isn't going to work out for me, then you're like, I guess I got to stop taking these drugs now. Did you taper
we stopped
off,
because we did trigger and we did go through with the 4 follicles that did grow, which was just so low. Like the average healthy woman that goes in to freeze her eggs, let's say in her 20s, her 30s, no like other issues going on, 20 eggs, easy peasy, and 1 IVF retrieval. For me, I had 4 tiny little follicles grow and none of the eggs, you never know if the eggs inside of them got to maturity until they take them out and test them. Mm-hmm. None of mine were viable. They all ended up in the trash. And so, and the cost was just huge. Yeah. Like I'm just flushing cash at this point. And that's not to take into account any of the lifestyle changes I started to make to try to manage my symptoms over the month, like Mediterranean diet, all organic, removing toxins. Like I was early on the scene of like trying to control what I could control because so much was out of my control.
Yeah.
So after that failed cycle or egg freezing cycle, I was like, okay, pulling my care out of Colorado. Failed surgery, failed egg freezing cycle. These people aren't good enough. I'm not saying they're bad. They're just not good enough for me. Yeah. And I started to scour the nation and did a ton of research. And I probably consulted with around 12 or 15 reproductive endocrinologists from the Bay to New York to Arizona to anywhere. I was finding anybody that was the top. Yeah. And I don't have the greatest insurance. And I think fertility benefits have gotten much better since 2021, that timeline for a lot of organizations, but still they're not good. So every consult that I took with one of these reproductive endocrinologists was $900 out of pocket.
Yeah, right.
Gosh,
but I was
you did
like,
12.
It was cheaper for me to do that than to end up in the wrong hands again.
Yeah.
That was my decision matrix of like, spend this now to find the right person or spend who knows what 2, 3, 4 more times until you find the right person. So I knew that front end cost, I just had to swallow it, and move forward.
I'm curious why the first 11 didn't seem right to you. Like what was your intuition or what was the information that you sort of drilled in on like, I don't like that. I don't like that.
Yep.
That's a lot of shopping.
It's a lot of shopping.
Expensive shopping.
It was expensive shopping.
Because there's no refund on initial consults.
There's not. I guess I didn't actually know I was building my own case study like as I was doing all of this, but there's, some divine intervention of some kind that was guiding me, to make sure I was doing it the right way. But most of them were giving me similar protocol of the one that failed. Most of them couldn't tell me why they would or why they wouldn't change the protocol. Most of them didn't really have a point of view on endometriosis and if they would or wouldn't do it differently. Most of them were like, we do it this way. And I'm like, sounds very similar. And I don't like to repeat the same mistake, especially really expensive ones. So it was just like one call after another, trying to see, would somebody tell me something different?
Yeah.
And for me, it was like, do I like them? Like, is there a vibe? Okay, if I do like them and they're in New York, what is that going to cost me? You know, to go to New York, stay there for 2 or 3 weeks. Like, I'm trying to like math this all out to figure out, can I even do it? And so then I got introduced to the most wonderful REI in the world, in my opinion, Dr. Andy Wong in LA. And
REI, what does that stand for?
reproductive endocrinologist.
Okay,
Yeah.
REI.
And so I met Dr. Andy, and first things, his demeanor was just remarkable. I was like, it feels soft. It feels warm. It feels welcoming. And we talked about, you know, my whole journey, kind of my tour, you know, that I've taken of consults. He was at the end of my list of people. And he asked me, so has anybody done an HSG test on you? And
HSG.
G.
Okay.
Yep. I don't know the long word, like
That's
off
fine.
the top of my head.
That's
but
fine. HSG.
Yes. So it's been around forever,
Yeah.
since like the 60s. Like this is a very normal test. And what they do is they run dye up and through your cervix to see if the dye can travel through your fallopian tubes so you know if there's any blockages. I had been told by all of these physicians up until this point that there was no chance I could ever have a baby on my own. Absolutely, my tubes were destroyed, like that there was no way an egg could ever travel. He's like, so has anybody done an HSG on you if that's what they've been telling you? I'm like, I don't know what that is. What are you talking about? And he was like, it's like a $60 test and it's really simple, completely painless. We'll come in, we send some dye up through your cervix, goes through your tubes. We watch it on an x-ray and that tells us whether or not your tubes are blocked. He's like, nobody's done that? I'm like, nope, never even heard of it. And he's like, well, then how could they tell you your tubes don't work? And I'm like, you're right. How could they? You're right. So he's like, so we're going to do that first. We're not going to tell you something that we're not certain of. I was like him, check. Mm-hmm. And then the next one that, of course, in the midst of a longer conversation, he was like, and I have a specific endometriosis protocol. We do mild stimulation for you. You are not going to respond like other women who are not dealing with this condition. If we overstimulate you, it's really bad, which is what you experienced. And if we mildly stimulate you, not only we will get a lower egg count, but we go in knowing that, we accept that truth, and it's cheaper for you because you're not spending as much on drugs.
And maybe the egg count has more integrity because like
It's
the eggs
higher
themselves
quality.
they're healthier, right? Yes.
Exactly. And I was like, why in the world is nobody else doing this?
Great question.
Gosh.
So I was like, when can I come?
Yeah.
And so that was that. I was like, I found my guy. This is who's going to help me for this step.
And when was that?
That was
2022
that was nope. It was actually still 2020.
Okay, it was still 2020.
Yep. And so
Probably late
yep,
2020.
Yep, exactly. So October, I decided I was still technically had my house in San Francisco. I had an apartment there, but I was going to and from Colorado because of the pandemic. Because San Francisco was like, this is not fun at all.
Yeah.
California was so strict, and San Francisco was like at the top of the echelon of it all.
They
Yeah.
really celebrated it.
Colorado was better,
Yeah.
like still a lot of rules and whatnot, but family was there, fresh air, like
Yes.
freer.
Yes.
So I told my mom, I'm like, Mom, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to do all this. But what I'm going to do that is I'm going to send all my stuff home. I'm mailing everything back. I'm shipping everything back from my apartment. I'm going to pack up my car and I'm going to drive down to Long Beach. I have one friend there. And my other best friend who plays professional women's soccer, she was in her off season. So she's like, I'll come hang at the beach with you, like, and do my off season training. And who cares if it's the pandemic? Like, it'll just be us and I'll help you. And we're going to get this done. So I packed everything I could in my car that I would need for the next, 2 or 3 months. I wasn't sure. And head down to the LA area where Dr. Andy was. I got two or three Airbnbs over that period of time instead of paying rent, and just posted up while I went through what ended up being 2 egg freezing cycles with Dr. Andy. And they were successful. So we went on the mild stimulation approach, and I had 8 eggs out of the first cycle, which he was like, if we get 4 or 6 for you, like that is success. And so we were above that. And then I was like, well, I'm already in it. I'm already in the trenches here. No reason not to do another round because the statistics aren't that good. They say about 12 eggs to one baby, particularly because I was not making embryos right away. I did not have a partner at the time, so I was freezing eggs for a future date of some kind. And they don't all thaw right. And they don't all become embryos or healthy embryos. So it takes about 12 eggs for one baby. So I was like, well, I need more than 8 then. 8 isn't quite enough. So I locked in, did one more cycle.
8 is not enough.
8 is
in
not
case,
enough.
In case people wanted to know.
Yeah.
It's not enough.
It's not.
Well,
So in the
and
second
you're like, I've
cycle-
already spent this much.
I'm
I don't
already
want to
locked
like
in.
shortchange myself at this point.
And I don't want to do it again.
No.
Right.
I may not be able to. Like everybody's telling me, you may not get to keep your organs. And
Yes.
so I was like, okay, well, let me drain everything I have.
Yeah.
Literally,
Yeah.
to afford this third round of egg freezing. And that cycle, we got 9.
All right.
So we're up to 17.
We're at 17. Yes.
All right.
And then I was like, and I'm broke.
Now I can't afford a baby.
Yeah, so we're going to hold on that. But we got the eggs. We
Yes,
got
step
the
one.
eggs. Yes.
Maybe another bad question, but how do you freeze the eggs? Is there like a bank where you can freeze them, kind of a thing?
Yeah. So they're frozen through cryo.
Yeah.
And depending on your fertility clinic, they all do it a little bit differently. Some keep them like in-house in their freezers, like on site, on scene. Others use cryo services, and those eggs get shipped off to another place that's really cold, like a big freezer. I imagine it is like a big freezer somewhere. I
Yeah.
don't actually know.
So you don't keep them yourself, like
No, they're not in my pocket.
in an igloo.
No.
Or in your home
Yeah.
freezer.
Sometimes you're like, sometimes after you've spent all that, you're like, can I just keep them? Because I don't know if I trust anybody.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would feel like it's a little nerve wracking.
It is,
Like,
and don't go down that rabbit hole
All right,
next.
yeah, all right.
Like
That's an aside.
on the wrong things that have happened with egg freezing.
bet.
There's
That's a whole
stories.
episode.
That's
That's a whole
another
episode.
episode. I'm not that girl.
okay, so we're in Long Beach. We've got 17 eggs, $0, but we're feeling better. How
I
were
got
your
step
cycles?
1 done.
Yeah, and how were your cycles during this time?
Well, because you're doing egg freezing and you're stimulating in a different way, you don't really have a actual period.
Right.
So those couple of months were better, but I would say because I had such a very large endometrioma on my right ovary and another one on my left, which are also called chocolate cysts, but they're cysts that are filled with blood from the endometrium and those cells growing in that way. I was in pain kind of often, but it was pain that I normalized.
Mm-hmm.
And
You just kind of got
we're
used to
just
it
high
after a while.
functioning. You know, you
Yeah.
become with any type of chronic condition like this, you just really learn how to A, live in denial, and then B, become high functioning despite, the limiting factors. So for me, I was like, all right, step 1 is done.
That had to feel good.
It was a relief. It was a relief. And like Andy's care with Reproductive Medical Group in LA, just 10 out of 10. I felt so good there. I was so cared for. But there's all these risks that are still involved. And so the fertility process, when you're going through egg freezing, it's all time sensitive, literally. Your follicles grow at different rates, like different sizes. They want to be monitoring you like every 2 days through ultrasound. Like it's a very invasive process. And they're watching you like a hawk because every day matters, almost every hour matters, like literally to when you're doing your injections. Like if you do your morning at 8 a.m., your evening has to be at 8 p.m. So you like coordinate your whole life around when am I injecting myself with drugs. And so at the end of my second egg freezing cycle, before we triggered for the release and before I went under to get the retrieval, Dr. Andy wasn't there that day because you don't always see your doctor when you're doing your checkups throughout this process because you're just in a rotation. You just got to see whoever's there because time is of the essence. Like the timing of that appointment matters more than who you see. And I met with another gal at RPMG, and I had learned a lot from my first cycle with Andy and was now kind of 2 or 3 days out from the trigger for the second set of eggs. And she told me to cancel. She told me to cancel. It was Monday and I was supposed to retrieve on Wednesday. And she was like, your follicles are too little. They're not developing at the rate. I would cancel now so that you don't spend what is kind of the more expensive side of all of this, which is the surgery, the anesthesia, and the retrieval. She's like, don't waste your time. Like, your follicles are too little. But what I had learned in my first proper cycle with Andy was similar. And this is where women's intuition comes in tenfold, and you have to trust yourself. Because I had learned from that first cycle, I was slow to grow. I was little follicles. And it took me a little bit longer to get to that maturity trigger point for whatever reason. That was my round 1. And I study myself, so I knew that. And so when she was telling me that, I was like, well, sounds familiar. Sounds like exactly what happened last time, and it all worked out. So I was like, no, I don't want to cancel. I want to go forward because I just have little follicles, and mine are just slow. And so 1 more day or 2 more days is going to get them where they need to be. And she looked at me like I was crazy. She's the expert, right? And I was like, no, I'm going to proceed. And lo and behold, we proceeded, and we got 9.
Got the 9.
We got
yeah.
more.
Okay.
Than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
So I took us back there for a second,
Yes,
but I think
that's
it's
good.
important because you want to believe the doctors in front of you, and they do have the best interest for you, but they don't know you.
Right.
They don't actually know you. She definitely didn't know me, and she didn't even study my chart like at all to know like, actually this pattern mimics the first pattern. Mm-hmm. I knew the pattern, and I held strong on the pattern, and I knew what my body was going to be able to do for me because it had done it the first time, and for whatever reason I'm little and they're slow, whatever. Yeah. So thank God I didn't take her, like recommendation, and I just moved forward with my intuition and my knowing because I was right. So success at that point, it's December, it's like a week before Christmas, and I'm throwing everything, getting out of that Airbnb, putting everything in my car, and I made the 15-hour drive home to Colorado. And I stayed in Colorado for a little while then because pandemic was still doing pandemic stuff. And that's when I took a little break over the holidays, but that's when step 2 started. And step 2 was, where in the world am I going to find a surgeon that can help me? And not help me in terms of a hysterectomy. Help me in terms of preserving my organs.
Right.
Yeah, because a hysterectomy removes the ovaries.
And your uterus.
Yes. And
that means no
ovaries,
baby.
No baby. Yeah.
But that is the gold standard of care
Yeah.
for women with endometriosis.
They remove it. It's a hysterectomy.
Hysterectomy is one of the more, I think it's an easier path for a surgeon.
Is that the most common reason someone would have a hysterectomy?
It's a big contributor, but there's many reasons to get a hysterectomy, and I absolutely believe the right situation requires that. Like, sometimes that is the solution. I think Western medicine, we really like to do surgery here in Western medicine, and we've learned or been trained that taking organs out is actually what we are deeming as the gold standard of care. Yeah. And so you have to remember this is 5 years ago, which is not that long ago, but it is long in terms of medical advancement. I don't know that most physicians or surgeons today would say hysterectomy is the gold standard of care, but that is what I was being told in 2020. Mm-hmm. I think more people understand endometriosis excision surgery now more than they did back then because laparoscopy and ablation was still being used very, very readily. So I was in this window of time where every consult I went on next for an endometriosis excision surgeon led me to full hysterectomy, and you cannot keep your organs. They saw my pictures.
Right.
And I refused that belief. I'd worked too hard. And
You just said, well, next on the list.
Exactly. A long list. A very long list.
What's the difference between excision, laparoscopy, and ablation?
Yes. So laparoscopy is a type of a tool that you use for surgery, minimally invasive. So they make tiny incisions on your belly. lower abdomen through your belly button. And it's the type of tool that they're using. Now the Da Vinci robotic excision is another way to excise or cut out the bad endo tissue. So laparoscopy and excision, those words mean the doctor or the surgeon is actually cutting the tissue out. Ablation is burning it and cauterizing in essence. And that used to be the method before robotic technologies advanced. Laparoscopy, again, is just a different type of tool, similar for excision. And some of the doctors who have been around for a long time still use laparoscopy truly because they're used to the instrument and they're wizards with it. They literally can manipulate it. I think younger surgeons now like the robot because it's as precise or more precise. And that's what they've learned on and trained on in med school. So they're more familiar with it. So you see or hear both being used.
So you refused surgery as the answer.
I refused a hysterectomy as the answer.
Okay, hysterectomy is the answer. So then what happened?
Oh, time marches on. Because if we think about, now I'm in spring of 21, after, kind of taking a little pause because this is exhausting. This is more than a full-time job, and I'm working a full-time job. And during the pandemic, I lead all of health and performance for Google with Exos. And so Google had committed during the pandemic to pay all vendors their full salary. They were not laying off a single person during the pandemic. And because we were in health and performance, I was given the amazing, wonderful opportunity to not only lead the entire Bay Area team, but also stand up all of our digital services. And I started to launch production studios for digital fitness. I was busy. Pandemic, I got busier. I was one of the only people in our team in fitness that we were not shuttered inside of the Google ecosystem. We were still producing, still interacting, and still delivering service just digitally. And standing up new ways to do that. And of course, digital fitness was all the rage. And I did a whole production gamut in my coaches' houses like this to do classes and whatnot. So I was so busy. And then you add a chronic condition that's debilitating. The debilitation came right back. My symptoms were only getting worse month over month. And I would continue to figure out how to architect my month, my week, my life around this. But what that entailed was going off camera to violently vomit in a trash can while you're leading a call for 150 people, taking calls from the floor because you just can't find anywhere to be comfortable. The things that I was doing that nobody would see, the invisible load was just out of this world heavy. So I'm just ruthlessly searching and looking and calling and coordinating and calling Cigna and trying to get them to get me exceptions for out-of-network doctors because those seemed to be the ones that had the skill. They also had the tab of around $50,000 out of pocket. I was like, I just drained $40,000. I don't think I have another 50 right now, but I certainly want to survive this.
Yeah.
So I was really stuck between a rock and a hard place. And Cigna denied all of my requests to try to get out of network approved and covered.
And there's $50,000 for the surgery
for
that
the
you
best
wanted to
excision
get?
specialist in the world.
Yeah.
It's between $30,000 and $50,000 for the excision surgery because it's self-pay.
Yeah.
And unless you can get an exception from your insurance, which doesn't really even help you, and because my insurance with my organization is a self-insured, self-pay, puts me in a whole nother category with legal statutes called ERISA. I was in this just tornado, this vortex of horror. And every system that was designed to support me was failing me. And so I just kept marching. I just kept trying, and I've heard of remission, through nutrition, and I kept studying endo, and I'm like, how do I help my body, actually internally heal? Because I do believe that we are, miracles walking around, and our body is intuitive too. And many women say that they've, gone in full remission by major changes in their lifestyle. But I was willing to try that because it was that or lose all my organs with the doctors that I was meeting. So I kept trying to self-manage, coordinate, and put my care together, doing acupuncture, doing lymphatic drainage massage, trying to move my body in any and every way that I could that felt right for that time of the month. And most important for me that I could control was nutrition and fuel. So I went pretty crazy, like on full Mediterranean, no inflammatory foods. I was going to control what I could control while I continued to hope to find a surgeon that could handle my case and meet me where my desires were with my goals to have a family. And I don't believe that you don't need your ovaries, or your organs, even in later life. Like, they're there for a reason, and they're not just for baby making.
Right. So did you find a doctor? Like, I'm just on the edge of my seat here.
It gets worse.
Okay.
But wait, it gets worse.
It gets worse. So fast forward a couple years' time, I'm trying to self-manage, self-govern, find care, find people, have consults that also cost out of pocket, build a career. I was promoted 3 times in 4 years.
Amazing.
Managing all of this. And because some days you're like, I can't talk about my health today. Like, I just got to be a normal human today, whether I want to or not. And so I was in an acupuncture appointment in December of 2024. A newer acupuncture gal that I started going to, and she was like, hey, a gal just came to me last week, and she had mentioned this surgeon down in San Diego. Have you heard of her? And I was like, nope, I don't. I met one person in San Diego, and he was terrible. But I don't know her. No, I don't. So she's like, I don't know anything really. She just said she liked her, but here's another name for you. And meanwhile, I was already on endo excision wait lists for some other consults. And to get a consult with an endometriosis excision specialist today can average 9 or 12 months of a waiting period just to get your first consult.
Because they're that busy?
They're that busy. Oh. Yep.
Well, that's not a good sign.
Not a good sign. So I was on a wait list with another doctor, Dr. Wright in LA. She's supposed to be really, really good, but that was a 9-month waiting period. So I wasn't going to be able to see her till May of 2023 at this point. Sorry, I got my dates wrong there. It was December of 2022 when I heard Dr. Shanda Spring Robinson's name for the first time. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, well, I'll call. And she was like, yeah, I can get you in March. And I'm like, oh, that's short. Yeah. I love this for me. Put me on the list. And I was not feeling good at this point in time. Like, the 5 days was just a nightmare. I couldn't go to the ER, even though my pain was at a level that was intolerable, because they either dismiss you, you're not acute, they don't believe you, or they give you narcotics. Narcotics wasn't a sustainable solution. I'm like, I'm going to be back here next month, like, that sounds like an addiction waiting to happen, in my opinion. Smart. So I steered clear of all ERs. I would not go there. So I suffered at home alone on the bathroom floor at 3 a.m., just praying somebody could come draw me a bath or get me in hot water or whatever it was when I was dealing with all of this. And the weeks in between were not good anymore. They weren't completely disabling like the first couple of days, but they were not good. I didn't feel well. I was in shooting pain all across my abdomen all the time. I mean, I had come to find out when I finally consulted with Dr. Shanda Spring Robinson, fully tethered frozen pelvis.
Oh my goodness.
Stage 4 endometriosis. But what happened right before I met her, and this is where my story really, really takes a hard left turn of just how scary it is to be an endometriosis patient in any ER, in any healthcare facility, anywhere. I tried to keep my life as normal as possible. And I was getting ready to fly home to Colorado to see my family. I go home often, if you haven't noticed. Yeah. I love it there. And I had a flight scheduled for, I think it was like Saturday, March 4th. Later in the afternoon, I was flying to Colorado. But that morning, I have a good friend and his wife. They were launching another digital fitness platform. It had just rolled out into the Crunch studio fitness boutique stuff in and across LA. And he's like, want to come to a spin class with me and my wife? And I'm like, for sure. Yeah. Like, let's do that. Not a huge lover of cycle. I'm more of like a strength training Pilates kind of girl, but sure. Cycle's fine. I've done it. It sounds fun. And I want to support you, like this sounds cool. So I didn't feel that good that morning. I'd say like On my endo scale, which I measured every morning and all day, every day, I was like a 6.5 out of 10. But that was like, that's pretty good. That was pretty good. So I was like, of course I can work out. Of course.
Yeah. Right as rain.
Yeah.
I'm a
it's fine.
6.5.
Yeah, solid. We're cruising. So I joined them. We get into the spin class, and halfway through, my entire abdomen caught fire.
Oh.
What do you mean?
Like
Caught fire.
just an inferno. Like I can't describe the pain, the heat. It felt like it literally felt like something erupted in my stomach, which isn't exactly different from my endo flares, except this was day 12, and that is weird because I know my patterns.
Right.
What was your first thought when that happened?
I was very worried because it was not on the right day. If that happened on day 2, 3, 4, I would know, buckle up, buttercup, like you're in it now, like stay seated. But this was like day 12, and I was like, no, that never happens. This is very out of the norm. But being the partially crazy person I was at that time. Driven, yes. Maybe a better word. There's probably another better word in there. Survivor, warrior, whatever it is.
That's right.
I was like, okay, I'm not going to quit class because you don't want to embarrass your friends. Like, you don't want to be that person who's like distracting the whole room. Like, as an endo girly, life is disrupting you here, there, and everywhere. And you start to like not want to be that person. You know, you don't want to be the one that's always sick. And so I was like, man. Really right now I'm just trying to hang out with my friends, and so I just like took my effort all the way down. I was like not gonna quit. I was not gonna get off that bike, except I felt like I was gonna vomit everywhere. And so I just like coasted. I just pedaled the rest of class, and as soon as it was over, I ran out of there, ran straight to the bathroom, and was violently vomiting in the bathroom. And his wife came running for me, of course, and was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? I'm like, I don't know, it feels like endo. Like, I have endo. This feeling is pretty much normal for me. This is weird. There is something weird happening, but it feels similar, unfortunately. So they were amazing, kind of like got me kind of back together, and they're like, let's drive you home. I went home, laid on the couch for like 2 or 3 hours, didn't even pack anything. I was like, my mom has clothes. I've left stuff there. I'm not packing anything. I'm just going home. Got on a plane and went home to Colorado. That night was a nightmare. Not the worst night I've ever had, but top 3.
Okay.
And I knew when I woke up in the morning, I didn't really sleep because I was just like writhing in pain all night long. All the pain was starting to radiate into my shoulder. And I'm like, okay, this is a big deal.
Because that hasn't happened
No,
before.
and like that's when, like as my medical background's, like that's when you know something is accelerating. And that's when I was
moving.
It's moving. It's starting to radiate other places. Your body's like trying to warn you in
So it
another
wasn't necessarily
way.
that it was the shoulder. It's just like that it moved somewhere else.
Yes. And I was like, okay, now my shoulder's on fire. Like what is happening? And so then I was like, uh-oh, I wonder if it's ovary torsion. And ovary torsion is what can happen when you have a large endometrioma or cyst on your ovary like I did, and it's heavy. Like your ovary, it's heavy for your ovary. And so what can happen working out or doing other things, which I was always really, really mindful and careful about, your ovary can flip, and then your fallopian tube flips with it potentially, and then now you've cut off blood supply. To your fallopian tube and whatnot. So I was like, maybe it's ovary torsion, or maybe my endometriosis is rupturing, like, which is a really bad thing too. So I got my mom up. I was like, we got to go to the ER. And she's like, oh my God, okay, let's go to the ER. We get in the ER, they do quick labs, and they're like, you are not going home. And I thought I was definitely going home. Like for sure going home. And they're like, you're not going anywhere. And I'm like, why? And they're like, your white blood cell count is through the roof.
So
they're like, you have a raging infection.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right. And they're like, and we don't really know where it's coming from. And that's when I fell into the endo void. And every practitioner from there on had glasses on that couldn't see the truth anymore. And this is what happens to endo patients, is that You get reduced to gynecological, you get reduced to period pain is normal, you get put in this little box of endo, and endo is this mysterious thing and nobody
And there's
quite
no
understands
cure.
it. There's no cure, all the things. And so their best guess was that I had a TOA, or a tubal ovarian abscess, and the abscess bursted, which would have triggered an infection. They couldn't actually verify that. And so they did a few other tests. They put me into a CT scan for my gallbladder to see if my gallbladder, because right shoulder radiating pain can be a signal of a gallbladder rupture. Gallbladder was okay. But because they saw my notes from my first failed laparoscopic procedure and endo all over, my medical records, they were like, we can't treat you. Like, we don't have anybody here that's more skilled than Dr. Preby, and he couldn't treat you. So we're going to medically treat you, but we cannot surgically move in. Otherwise we would. Like, this is a surgical progression here in most cases, but we can't see any of your organs. Like, we don't know what's actually happening in there. So we're just going to medically treat you. And what medically treat me meant was I was going to be in the hospital for 4 days on 3 different IV antibiotics, and round the clock they were rotating them to get my white blood cell and this infection kind of under control.
Yeah.
The curiosity stopped there. They never checked or were curious if that was the diagnosis. They just put TOA as the likely suspect, and they
had their marching orders.
That's what they did.
Yeah.
And I knew I was in a danger zone at that point. I was like, I've got to get out of this hospital. I need to get back home to LA next week because I meet Dr. Shanda Spring Robinson on the 12th or something, and I need to get to her. She might be the only person that can save me. And so I was like, Mom, go get me my favorite bagel from my favorite bagel shop. I was trying to just eat so that I could get on the oral antibiotics and get out of there. That was my only goal, get out of there.
Yeah.
Or they were going to send me into surgery and they were going to take my organs. There was not going to be a surgeon there that was going to be able to excise in the way that I needed it. It was going to be organ removal. And I was like, no. I worked too hard to not do that. I got to get out of here. I was able to do that, got out of there, rested a few days with my mom at home and with my family, and then got on a plane and went back to California. Drove myself down to San Diego a couple days later, because this is what you do when you're navigating. You're doing it alone, unfortunately. And I met Dr. Shanda Spring Robinson, and she did a full workup on me. She knew her ultrasound technician has been studying endo for 40 years. And she's one of the only ones, at least at that point in time, that could confidently say endo on an ultrasound, because you didn't diagnose it that way before. And then with, of course, my other images and whatnot, she was like, you are fully tethered. You are frozen. Every organ in your body is not in its right anatomical position anymore. And the adhesions and lesions are so strong, it's like concrete. Your organs are glued to one another at this point. And so she's like, you need surgery, girl. And you just got out of the hospital. You need this. And I was like, okay. So I felt good with her finally. I was like, I think we have the same outcomes, but the questions I kept asking the excision specialist before her and then her was like, but are you team organ preservation, not organ removal? And she's like, I will save everything I can, which was the best answer, but I believed her. It wasn't just lip service, right?
Mm-hmm.
She was going to try to meet me and meet my goals, not just what the medical goals might look like. But I was still on the fence. Right or wrong, I was still on the fence because I still had consults with Dr. Sechin in New York, which I'd consulted with before. He's one of the most world-renowned experts in endometriosis excision. And I had another consult with another doctor in LA, also world-renowned. Those were the two that were still out of pocket. But I was like, do I just drain it all, drain everything I have and just go to the experts? Or do I go to this gal in San Diego who I think can do the job too? And she's in network, so it's $7,000, not 50. And I just had to sit on it. For whatever reason, I just had to sit on it. So I spent the next little bit of March, April, May comes around, and I went on a cruise with my best friends. My best friend was getting married, and so we went on a cruise for her bachelorette. I knew it was risky to go, especially on a boat, like in the middle of nowhere. I was like, girl, you're really
pushing
stretching
here.
the limits here.
You're making me nervous.
Yes. And I'm not kidding you. The second my foot hit the land after the cruise, finished the cruise, lovely time, had the best time, felt normal for like a couple of days with girlfriends. Like I needed it. Like I needed to be there. But my little foot hit the ground coming off that boat, and my period started 10 days early. Never has that happened before. And I was like, oh no. This is going to be a long 6-hour flight back to LA. But I had one night, one sleep in Miami before I was flying because I knew I needed time. I'm a slow mover at this point. Like, you pace yourself. And so I stayed one night in Miami. It was horrible. My symptoms were horrible. Everything was horrible. I had a virtual consult with that other doctor in LA the next morning before I got on my flight to get back. So meanwhile, I'm like getting off a bachelorette cruise, still jumping on the phone with a surgeon to be like, can you save me? And managed to get on that flight and get home. Everything was going downhill really fast. And I've never felt sicker. And I was like, what is happening? Like, never had an early cycle ever. Mine were like clockwork. I knew almost to the hour my life was going to be ruined for the next few days. So 10 days early, not okay. I lost my appetite. And granted, those first couple of days I was never eating like anything. I could barely keep fluids down. But after that, like everything would kind of kick back into somewhat normal gear. And I was like, I love my food. I'm a foodie. Like, this is... Losing my appetite is weird, and my pain was nonstop, like no breaks, all day, all night, doing everything I could to not only lead an organization of 400 people like I was leading at that time, had just gone through our first reduction in workforce, and my org was like in despair, like souls were shattered. Trying to hold that container, of humans and humans still coming out of the pandemic, and all of these things, and trying to navigate my body and knowing I'm really on thin ice. And I was like, something's really, really wrong. But I knew if I went to the ER, I was going to be in trouble. And so I called Dr. Shanda Spring Robinson, and I was like, I think something really bad is happening. I don't know what it is, but I'm worse than ever. And I don't know what it is. Like, I can't distinguish it. And here's what's happening. She's like, girl, you should have been here 2 months ago. I'm like, I know. I'm ready. She's like, are you for sure ready? And are you coming? And I'm like, yes, like something is really wrong. She's like, I am going to call 2 women right now, and I'm canceling their surgery on Monday so that I can block the OR for you. So don't flake. I was like, I will not flake. And I just prayed every night that I would make it to Monday because that's how sick I felt. I get down to San Diego to Scripps, obviously get under anesthesia, all of that. And the first thing she had to do was call in gen surge because my appendix was rupturing. And that is actually what happened in March, more than likely.
How do you survive that long
2
with
months?
with a burst appendix?
They don't know. She said she's never seen an appendix more calcified in endometriosis. And so it maybe burst it. And then because it tethers and builds everything so quickly, maybe it put it, nobody knows. She's like, I don't know how you're here.
It makes sense. Everything was so bound up that like every organ is under stress. So of course that could be one of the things that could happen in that environment, right?
Oh, so you were walking around with a burst appendix for 2 months, including a nice time at sea with your friends.
I mean, that just goes to show the level of pain tolerance that you got yourself to.
Yeah, no kidding.
Which is absolutely hard to even wrap your head around.
I can't. I don't know. I don't know. She's like, I don't know how you're here. Nobody knows how you're here.
So how long was your surgery?
9 hours.
A 9-hour excision surgery. How long are they normally?
2 or 3.
Yeah.
4 or 5 for like really challenging cases.
So double.
My mom was
really
the
challenging.
only one left in same-day surgery with like no updates, like waiting for me.
Oh my goodness.
But Dr. Chandra Spring Robinson is just genius and meticulous at what she does. My right ovary, it wasn't a guarantee for a long while. She could not get it to stop bleeding after she got that endometrioma off. It was a fight. It was a battle, a full-fledged battle in there to untether me and get my organs back in anatomical position. So my right fallopian tube had been tethered and strung around my appendix. She says my fallopian tube had my appendix in a chokehold, in essence.
Ow.
My left ovary, because of the adhesions and lesions pulling it, was almost pulled into my left inguinal canal. Everything was distorted in my anatomy, like nothing was in its right place because of all of that, the adhesions and lesions doing their work for my whole life is the part of this story that it didn't just happen in the 2 years I was off birth control.
Okay.
This has been going on and had been muted by birth control for my entire life.
Okay. I'm glad you brought us back there because
you don't
that's
get
a good
to stage 4
point.
fully tethered, fully frozen pelvis in a couple of years' time.
Okay.
I don't believe that.
So you think that you were, I mean, how old were you, do you think, when this all started?
There's a lot of research coming out. More and more girls at the onset of period are getting diagnosed with endometriosis because of how debilitating their period cycles are. So that's where the research is starting to really butt up against each other of like, what is the origin of this? Because it's unlikely to me that you can have endometriosis at the onset of period if your cells just weren't misplaced or there was something wrong in your replication, at the onset of conception. Like why else would you have endo at age 12? I don't know the research well enough. I'm not a scientist in that world. I'm to really be able to give like hard facts or data behind it, but that doesn't add up to me. That it's not just, you don't just get it over time. Like girls are getting it and getting diagnosed literally the moment they start their periods because they're so bad.
So if you are experiencing a really painful periods and like this is not normal, but who knows, like what does someone do? Let's just say it is a teenager that's like, oh my gosh, what is happening? And usually the doctor will say, go on birth control. It helps with your cramping. Of course, that's what everybody is given out. What do you think is a better, like, what can they do? What kind of questions do they ask? Who do they go talk to?
You never take one opinion. And I think that goes for all things health, everything, even drifting topics quickly. Like my dad had to go through an emergency triple heart bypass at the age of 81 this last fall. And I was like, you're not just seeing one surgeon. We're going to see a few. Like you never get one opinion. And I think that's one major thing I've learned throughout this journey is like it takes multiple opinions for you to understand and decide where your care should go. The challenge is that our system, the healthcare system, is designed for the patient to be their own advocate. When were we taught how to be an advocate in there? We weren't.
No, we
I
were not.
am lucky because I have a biomedical sciences degree. I've worked in hospitals. I've worked actually in the insurance side of hospitals briefly. Like I had nomenclature, I had words to use. I could hold some power inside of those conversations, even when I felt powerless, just because of my upbringing. Like,
Right. And like
a
hardly
regular
anyone has
person
that.
isn't going to know
Exactly.
even a fraction of what I knew going into those conversations, which I think is somewhat why I got a diagnosis so fast, because that diagnosis I got 1 year in takes every other woman about 10 years to achieve, because of the gaslighting and like just mute it, just go on birth control. It's not actually a problem. Like you feel better on the pill. So I think when you're met with these moments in healthcare for any condition, but certainly for women's health, getting multiple opinions, not just trusting one singular source of data, looking at like what are the ways that you can holistically support and look at what's happening at a cellular level, a metabolic level, what environmental factors might be at play to really start to get yourself like a full wraparound like care model And some of that's in our control to change. Some of it's not. So I would say it takes, a level of grit and just sheer determination to work through the system for most of these inflammatory or chronic conditions because, they make a lot of money on us.
Yeah,
and
they
so it's
do.
really hard to get the right answers.
You had a massive, massive surgery in, what was it, May of 2022?
May 22nd.
So almost 4 years ago now. And you...
3.
3 years ago.
Yeah, coming up on 3.
So it was 2023 you got surgery?
Yeah, 2023.
Okay. And you look and sound like you're doing very well, but how long was the recovery after that 9-hour surgery for you?
Oh my God. I literally just told this to Dr. Chandra Spring Robinson. I saw her about a month ago and she's like, girl, I'll never forget. You're like top 3. Like I can't forget you if I wanted to. And she's like, in your right ovary. I will never forget your right ovary. That gave me so much trouble.
What organs did they save in the surgery? I don't know that we heard that definitively.
Actually, so we
Okay.
came out mostly successful. But
Mostly successful.
but for my goals.
Yes.
But I did lose my fallopian tubes.
Okay.
They were just destroyed at that point. So 5 years from that HSG changed a lot. And it was devastating. Like that was another moment of grief, and things that you just like let go or process and let go. And I was able to put, a more positive story, to that a bit is like, and what I learned through research, of course, because again, I nerd out on all of this. I want to know all the answers. If I would have kept my fallopian tubes for some reason and they were that damaged, more than likely knowing the person I am, and when I finally met my partner and then we do go to try to have babies, I would have wanted to try naturally. Like that would have been step 1 and like save the eggs, like for if we really have to. And damaged fallopian tubes or fallopian tubes with endometriosis or inflammation, I mean, that's the first place the egg and the sperm meet. And if that environment is toxic, which it is with endo, you're not going to get a viable pregnancy. And I was probably saved from more miscarriages by just getting those guys out of there and knowing I have a different path to achieve my goals anyways. But it's still grief. Like it's still, as a female, as somebody who wants to have babies, and do all of that. Like, although I knew the risks going in, there was still grief involved. And so what Dr. Chandra and I were giggling about like a month or so ago when I went just for a little checkup, I was chatting with her on all the things, what's going on in my body, getting a checkup. And she's like, so what was the worst part again for you? And I was like, it was what is called crepitus. And
Crepitus?
yes. So crepitus, didn't know this before I walked into this nightmare either. Crepitus is what happens when you are under anesthesia for a long duration of time and because of an endometriosis or abdominal procedure, they inflate you with CO2. They make your belly bigger because it's pretty tiny in there at the end of the day.
Gotta make some space.
And they need to like work around your organs, see stuff, so they inflate your abdomen. And when you're under anesthesia for 9 hours, the CO2 had literally gone into every dermal plane of mine. What that meant was that when I woke up or saw myself in the mirror after surgery, I looked minimally 60 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
And what happened with that for me that night after my procedure, that was the worst night of my life. I thought appendix rupturing was maybe the top. This superseded that on all the levels. I literally thought my chest was going to explode. And I kept asking the nurse and asking her, I'm like, what's going on? Like, I think my chest is going to explode. I think my chest is going to explode. And she's like, don't know what to tell you. And then I was like touching my face and I was like, why do I hear all these bubbles popping? Like air bubbles. And I told the nurse, I'm like, there's like air bubbles popping in my face right now. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, girl, if I could get out of this bed right now, we would have different words.
Wow.
However, I cannot.
Oh, gosh.
She and I were going on rounds and rounds, and I literally was like demanding to talk to Dr. Chandra Spring Robinson. I was like, get my doctor on the phone. This is not okay. Like, I am not okay.
Yeah.
I am in a level of pain I can't even describe, and I'm used to pain. Like, this is out of control, and there was nothing they could do for me. And so when I woke up the next morning, I was like, oh my God, who am I? Like, who is this girl? Like, all bloated with air.
Yeah.
And anything I would touch, I was popping. It was bizarre.
Weird.
But my chest, it was a nightmare. And she was like, that was harder than a 9-hour excision surgery and the recovery after? I said, yes, it made recovery feel like nothing because this was horrific. The first 3 days were horrific. When I got discharged from the hospital, I was really intentional. Working at Exos has taught me a lot about intentional recovery. And we train elite professional athletes. That's the core of our business, but we also do corporate well-being. But our 4 pillars are mindset, movement, nutrition, and recovery. So over the course of these 3-ish years, or almost 4 with Exos, while I was dealing with all of this, I really started to learn about central nervous system regulation and how do I start to embody or bring more of these tools into my system to help me. And so with all of that, and all of this crepitus and everything going on, and I didn't know it was going to be a 9-hour surgery, but I knew it was going to be a big one with big recovery. I was like, well, I don't want to go to my apartment in LA. I'm not on the beach. Can't quite afford that yet. But I wanted really proper recovery. I wanted ocean ions. I wanted to be able to go ground in sand. Like I wanted to be able to heal properly. So my mom and I got an Airbnb in La Jolla and just sat at the beach for almost 2 weeks while I went through the first initial waves of recovery. And inside of all of that, like the first couple of days, oh my God, it's so embarrassing. Because I had all that air trapped in my body, the only way to get it out was like to massage my legs, or my mom would like get after on my back and massage my back. And then I would sit there and burp, not even burp. Full grown man shake a house belching.
What?
Wow.
This
My
is crazy.
mom
That's
was
how
like,
the CO2 was getting out
that's
of your
how
body?
I got the gas out.
Oh my
And because I was like,
gosh,
I got to
for
get
2
this
It has
out.
to get out somehow.
Oh, it lasted 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
Yeah. My mom was like, I have never heard you make these sounds.
You're like,
in
well,
your
no
whole
first
life."
dates in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. But 4 weeks later, I was still pushing air out of my rib cage and still popping bubbles on my body and still burping.
That's like out of a sci-fi movie.
It felt like that for
Yeah.
sure.
And that's crepitus.
That's crepitus. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not fun. It's really, really bad. A moment that I want to really come back to inside of the day after my surgery, and this is what endo women face, and this is how hard the healthcare system is for us, is that, remember I mentioned Dr. Wright? Mm-hmm. And I had an appointment with her in May?
Yeah.
Well, that appointment was on May 23rd. I had surgery on May 22nd. I wasn't going to lose that appointment, though.
Just in case.
Because I was like, well, Dr. Shanda Spring Robinson is in San Diego. That's not like right next door. Dr. Wright is literally at Cedars-Sinai, 7 minutes from me. I think I still need her in my care team.
Yeah.
And so I took that Zoom telehealth consult because I needed to check that box so I could become her patient. And then I could book appointments with her like anytime and more regularly. I wouldn't have to wait on that 9-month waiting list for an endo consult. Mm-hmm. So I'm on Zoom in my hospital gown, looking like a person who I'm not because I was 60 pounds full of air at that point. And she's like, are you in the hospital right now? And I'm like, yeah, I actually just had a 9-hour excision surgery yesterday.
Wow.
And I was like, but I had to meet you today so that I could be your patient. Can I just be your patient now and we can hang up? She's like, yes, you can be my patient. I was like, okay, check whatever box you need to check, but just keep me on your roster. I'll call you if I need you, but thanks.
That is amazing.
Yes,
oh my gosh.
but like that's what we have to do in order to like architect the care team that's going to take you the distance. And so if I wind us back just slightly one more time, after that hospitalization in March, where we left with more questions than answers and a more fragile, true state of being than that any other point that I had experienced. I had gotten home and it was right. I don't think I'd even met it was right after Dr. Spring Robinson's appointment. And that weekend, obviously not feeling well, had just been in the hospital not even 2 weeks before that, a nice quiet Saturday night on my couch, at like 30, 38, at home on a Saturday night, still single. Still single. Not where you really want to be when you're like, yep, still trying to find a boyfriend, still trying to, maybe have a family at some point. But here I am on my couch on a Saturday night. The entire concept of Samara Health came to me. And I sat in a flow state for almost 6 hours and just typed and typed and typed and typed. And that was the entire first manifesto of curating and designing care teams and building the solution that I had needed all of these years. And that is where Samara Health was born.
And it's spelled?
Samara.
And what does that word mean?
Yeah, so I went through all of this with endo. I had another, 2 other pretty traumatic experiences happen 4 weeks after this endo experience. Podcast for another time.
We definitely need a
Follow
round
up.
2 here.
This one's a deep one too. But I knew I just needed to go and be still. There was too much going on. There was so much noise. I was still healing. I was like, I'm going to take myself to Costa Rica. And I went to Santa Teresa, and I had met a friend in a breathwork class. Literally, that's the only time we had met. But he's building a 200-acre, fully regenerative, community in Santa Teresa. And he was like, hey, I'm down here. I can set you up with this person at this little boutique apartment place. I'm around, so if you want to grab dinner here or there, we certainly can, but come restore, come heal. You can heal here. So I was like, all right, I'm on my way. Took all of his little recommendations, booked myself up, and went to Santa Teresa because I was like, I just need to be still. I need to be in nature. I need to ground. I need to figure out what in the world is happening in this life of mine because this is getting crazy.
And when was this, by the way?
This was August of 2023.
Okay, got it.
And just on Google Maps, as you're bopping around in Costa Rica and Santa Teresa, your primary means of transportation is an ATV. There's a little town north of Santa Teresa called Samara. And I was on the beach, I think, one day, just poking around on the map, what's near me, what's here, what might I do? Because I had no plans going there. It was just to be still and explore and be with myself. And I was like, that's such a cute name. Let me Google that and see what that means. And so there's 2 meanings for Samara. There's a Hebrew meaning, which means protected by God. And I genuinely believe that is the only reason I am here today. And then the Arabic translation is late night conversations or late night talker. And some translations say with girlfriends. And I'm like, that is exactly what we do, us girls. We're late night chatting with our girls. We're being like, wait, did you like that OBGYN you went to? Oh, wait, tell me who your acupuncture gal is. Or
Totally.
We're all doing that with each other, just chatting, and yapping and sharing resources. And sometimes, it's late at night. Most of mine was with Google search. But I was like, I just love that name. That's the name of my business.
Yes.
And that's where that came
I
from.
love that name.
Yeah.
And so what is the mission of Samara Health?
Samara Health is a longitudinal care navigation and intelligence company for women with complex, chronic, and somewhat invisible conditions. And so there's 3 prongs to Samara Health. The core of it is what I call a care lead, but it's really an intuitive coach, a coach that is designed around, human performance, how you move through these cyclical waves in life, how you bring central nervous system regulation into it, behavior change, professional executive coaching, because I didn't mention I hired a professional executive coach during these years so that I didn't fall behind and I didn't become the 1 in 6 statistic. And she was incredible to keep me on track or finding signal in all the noise of my body and my situations to keep me accelerating in my career. Best investment I could have made, and it was a lot of money too, a lot. So I've woven all of these coaching modalities into one over my experiences and my experience in human performance coaching. So that's your core, is a care lead. And that person is somebody who's going to know you intimately. They're going to follow you. They're going to stay with you for every cyclical piece of your women's healthcare ecosystem. The second thing I'm building, because this is where I got stuck, is what I call a little bit of the class pass of holistic healthcare. And it was really frustrating and devastating to me on certain months where my budget couldn't get me all of the care that I needed, because holistic practitioners are typically self-pay. And I feel like everything for women is a point solution. You've got acupuncture over here for $150 a pop. You've got lymphatic drainage for whatever amount over here. Your supplement stack for this, like all of these things add up, and you really start to slice and dice, like what can I afford to get, not what do I need.
Yeah.
And that to me is just a little predatory, and I think it's unfair for us women, like when we need more of the holistic services for a chronic inflammatory condition like endometriosis, and everything is really expensive. I respect the practitioners. I understand that pricing is there for a reason, but it's limiting us from getting care that we need and at the cadence that we need it. And I had to make some hard decisions some months and be like, can't go this month because like you just blew this money over on this over here. And so inside of that, Samara members can bundle services, and the practitioners that are invited into Samara Health are also equally as committed to changing women's healthcare as I am, and are offering much deeper discounts in a way so women can get more of what they want. So the more you bundle, the more you save inside of this practitioner network.
That's
so maybe
brilliant.
you could afford 2 things. Now you can afford 3.
Yes.
Maybe you could do 4. Now you can do 5 or 6.
Have you launched it yet? You mentioned you're still working at Exos as well.
I'm doing both.
Okay.
Because,
Yeah.
she does things
Exactly.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I
She
am
does
doing
it all.
both.
So Samara Health, which
Samara
I think
Health,
is
we're small-
teamsamara.com.
Yep, teamsamara.com. And then the third layer, which is where I think it's exciting and probably the lagging of the 3 areas for me, but something I still coordinate for women who are in the membership, is home health care for the modern woman. The care I needed was care at home. I needed somebody at 3 a.m. to come draw me a bath. I needed a nurse to come over and give me IVs those 5 days I was vomiting every month. I needed somebody to show up to an appointment with me and be an advocate with me, or just listen for me, because I left a lot of these appointments when they're telling you we're taking all your organs out, like it's over for you, girl. And like I'd black out. I'd hear everything in there, and then I got out and I'd be like, oh my God, I forgot everything, because trauma, like it's
Stress, yeah.
Your stress, your cortisol's high, like you just forget. So I was losing details because I was going alone, to everything, and I was alone at home. So whether that's a CNA that comes over and supports you on a few things when you're just maybe in a, like, not totally, in a bad zone, but need some help, or if you're like me on days 1 through 5 and you needed a nurse to come over probably like every other day just to check on you, keep fluids, keep nutrients going for you. So that piece I outsource a bit with local concierge nursing companies. We're partnered in a way, but I believe that's what we need, is the communities that we have need to be built in our homes, and I'd rather go to the doctor less.
Sure.
While they're still the anchor of my care. So Samara Health, we curate care teams for you. Just like athletes have a strength coach, a speed coach, a nutritionist, a recovery coach.
Mental health coaches.
I'm like, well, I want that. Why can't I have that? And I'm going to build it. So we're
Good
building
for you.
it.
Wow. Is it commercially available?
Yep.
Okay.
And do you have social media where people can find?
Yep. I've got Instagram at Samara Health. Website, again, is www.teamsamara.com. You can contact me through my website or social media. And I'm growing. Right now, I'm in the process of bringing on more founding coaches. I've been the coach, kind of really architecting my IP, my methodology, and all of those things for the last year or so, and building the infrastructure that can actually support women once they come to me. So I've got a really tight network of amazing practitioners in LA. I've got a really, really growing list here in Scottsdale. And Austin are kind of like my primary markets, where I've got enough of a practitioner network to confidently refer women out to the things that they need. Meanwhile, we as your care team and your care lead, we hold the thread. So we hold what happens in between the appointments. We hold adherence. We hold, meeting her where she is. And as I mentioned, there were some weeks I just wanted to talk about work. I didn't want to talk about my health. Like, I need a break. I'm studying this, I'm doing stuff all the time. Like I just want to focus on work this week. So if she's in that position, okay, well then we'll bring the professional executive coaching component into the fold, and we're going to meet you where you are and slowly really work on behavior change. There is no magic pill for endometriosis. There's lots of technology and advances in science that maybe will get us to a cure at some point. The system is still fragmented. The healthcare system is still wasn't made for women. So no matter what, Samara stays with you. You might meet us through endometriosis. That is my beachhead market, but it is for the cyclical nature of women's health. And most of the hardest years of our health are the same years we're growing careers, growing families, and trying to do it all.
But it's not just for people with endometriosis.
Yeah. Metriosis.
Endometriosis.
Yes.
I'm sorry why I could not get all that out of my mouth. But yes, but it's for anyone that has like ongoing chronic health issues that they're just struggling
Absolutely.
to find answers.
Yep.
Absolutely brilliant business model. I love it. And it feels so right to, we need so much more of that, especially in women's care, like you're talking about. The system has a very long way to go.
Yeah.
And to have that access to a health advocate or someone who can just come to your house, especially if you live alone. I mean, I just think it's so brilliant. So well done on that.
Thank you.
How are you feeling on a regular basis these days?
I feel great. I do, except that when I had my follow-up appointment with Dr. Chandra Spring Robinson about a month or two ago, endo is relentless. So I do have signs that it's growing back. I feel great, so that's good. But the fear on the other side of that is it's silently doing it. So who knows the progression there? So I feel like I'm still the patient. I thought I got out of it. I was really happy about that for a bit. But I think
we're out of the thick of it.
The lived experience is what's so valuable in all of these waves. So recurrence of endo or not, like I am, now starting to think about actually making embryos and moving forward and, the having a family and doing all of that. So I feel good, but I am the patient again and navigating another chapter of what it takes to balance our health, achieve our goals, and also, do the rest of life. But overall, I feel amazing, truly.
Good.
Third dumb question of the episode.
This is your last one, Patrick.
Thank you. I think it might be. So do you still get your cycle?
I do.
And how's the pain?
It's fine. Yep.
Okay.
Very normal, very normal. My cycles are getting irregular. I'm 41. Endo women typically enter perimenopause about 4 to 5 years earlier than a woman without endo. So there's normal things that are happening, I think, for a lot of us at age 40, 41, where you're like, oh, that's a little different, or that's not quite the same way as it was. So yep, still have cycles. They're just not as predictable as they were when I was 35 and managing this period of endo, which was truly a gift because a lot of women that I coach with endo, theirs is all over the place. So they don't know when they're going to be debilitated. I literally knew, and I could carve my life out accordingly to be able to manage it slightly better. So
there needs to be a lot more public awareness of endometriosis.
Yeah. So for me, it's direct to consumer first. The long game strategy, though, for me is I believe it's a CEO's responsibility to invest in the women in their workforce. We make up about 50% of the workforce today. We spend 4 times as much on healthcare costs as men. We make 80 some cents to the dollar as men. And the presenteeism of an endo person in your workforce, they're losing around 6.4 hours of working hours per week as they're managing this condition. So from a CEO's perspective, you're more profitable. You achieve your business goals faster when the women in your organization are healthy. So my long game is that healthcare is going to take a long time to change. I'm going to do it for the rest of my life. I will not stop. But inside of organizations is where you can get real change real fast and support women who are quietly, managing all of this invisible load on their own.
Amazing.
Well, thank you for the amazing work that you're doing and taking your pain and turning it into something good for the world. And that's so admirable.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you for sharing your story.
3 final questions. I think I know the answer to the first 2, but
Cool.
I'm really dying to know the answer to the third.
Let's go.
These are 3 questions we ask every guest. The first one is, at your rock bottom on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, how did you feel? I think I know what your number is going to be.
Okay, so rock bottom, 10 being the best?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're going to ask the second question, which is, how do you generally feel now? Same scale.
Rock bottom.
You had a number of rock bottom moments.
Oh, negative 100.
I knew you were gonna go in the negatives.
There's
I
no
just
way
wasn't sure
it's
how
a
deep.
zero. Yeah.
Yeah. So nowadays, most days, what is your number?
Oh, I'm a 9 or a 10.
Gosh.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
always.
an amazing thing.
Yeah. I think what I've learned, with a lot of these things is, again, turning pain into purpose.
Yeah.
The review mirror is a lot easier to see things sometimes, but my walks of life had led me here. And I'm not quite sure, why I'm an endo, an endo girly that is going to fight the good fight, but all roads have led me here. And that's where I'm supposed to be.
Ashley, thank you so much for being on the Rock Bottom podcast
you
with us
both.
today. I told you most of our episodes are about 45 minutes. We've almost doubled that with this episode.
But with a story
it
like
was
that, it's as long as it needs to be. So
fascinating. On the edge of my seat, goosebumps quite a few times. Thank you for sharing this with our audience. As you know, the reason we have the Rock Bottom podcast is to let other people know out in the audience, if you're going through something, know that one day you could be sitting where Ashley is sitting at an 8 or a 9. Just keep going. Don't give up. Just keep going.
Absolutely.
Final word?
Just thank you. And here to support in any way as everybody's watching and learning. And I'm an advocate in all the ways for anybody, anything.
thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you both.
This episode of the Rock Bottom podcast is brought to you by Jigsaw Health, a family-owned, Arizona-based nutritional supplement company. Every formula is made with clean ingredients that are third-party tested to ensure that what's on the label is in the bottle and nothing else. Learn more at jigsawhealth.com.
Do you have a health horror story? We're always looking for stories that will inspire others, so please use the link in the description to apply to be on our show. Finally, if this episode resonated with you, then please like and subscribe. It really helps others to find our show, and we want to help spread the word. New episodes drop every other Wednesday, so thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next show.